Welcome to Overwatch, and welcome to something a bit different. You might notice, by the way, that, my face, all this is going on right here. There's a microphone here as well, by the way. Hello, if you haven't seen my face before, yeah, I'm like a mixture between, I don't know, Dr. Robotnik, Heisenberg, some bald nerd. This is what I look like. Hi. Get your mean comments out of the way now. I think the best one I've heard is I look like something made in the Dark Souls character creator. That one was actually really funny, so well done you. But what we really want to talk about today, rather than my face, is the so-called NIP comp. So how better than to record a YouTube VOD of the NIP comp in action. So this is Reunited versus Ninjas in Pajamas from the Lenovo Cup playoffs. And this is an interesting match, right? Because the NIP comp has basically become kind of standard meta now in the pro scene. It's taken over. It's becoming the norm. Why? How? What's happened? What is the NIP comp? Well, slow down. Slow your roll there. Sugar Plum. We're going to explain it. We're going to go through it. So the NIP comp isn't actually being used at the moment by Ninjas in Pajamas. This is actually a variation on the NIP comp, but it's got all the basic pieces there. And the NIP comp is basically built around this chick here. It's based around Ana. So what Ana provides you with is an incredibly powerful ultimate. And the power of that ultimate is in how fast it charges. Ana ultimate charges before any other ultimate in the game. What does that mean? Well, that means that you can get a very early advantage, and the big advantage you get, and we're going to see Mort execute this incredibly well, by the way. And by the way, Reunited are basically running standard NIP comp, just with a tracer thrown in. This is like the third support, so it's normally considered like a 3-3 comp, but you do get 3-1-2 variants of it, where you have the DPS instead of one of the supports, usually a Zenyatta's sacrificed or Mercy's sacrificed for that final piece. But the big thing to watch here is the race between the two Anas, and Mort is absolutely storming ahead. And what's going to happen as Saf comes online on Battle.net, let's close that. Mort is going to storm ahead, get an nano boost onto Fraggy, not onto Fraggy, onto Winghaven. And Winghaven, he's on 20, well, now he's on 25% ultimate. What I want you to do is watch this when the ultimate happens. Like, I'm going to be watching it too. You can see my face watching it when this happens. So any second now, Winghaven goes in 30, 40, 50, 60, and it's going to keep climbing up. Boom! He has an ultimate already. And let's pause it right there. Fraggy also has his ultimate ready, by the way, but that's just because the rest of Reunited plowed in and Fraggy basically managed to swing on multiple people at once. Nip did a good job of spreading out, but one hit is 10% ultimate with that nano boost on. So if you hit 5 people, that's half your ultimate. If you hit 3 people, that's 1/3 of your ultimate already charged up. That's a huge gain of ultimate charge. That's an absolutely enormous momentum shift. And this is the cornerstone of the Ana comp. I'm just going to keep this playing on while I explain the details now, the deets. Okay, so Ana comp, 3 tanks, 3 supports, just standard lineup. We'll talk about variants in a second. The idea is that your 3 tanks just soak up damage. You actually intentionally take damage. You keep the Reinhardt barrier down for as much as possible, or as much as you can take. Then you bring it back up when you need it. Ana heals everyone back up. Bish bash bosh. Ana has an ultimate before the enemy team is even close to theirs. Okay? What that means is then you put a nano boost onto Reinhardt. Reinhardt is super tanky. He's ridiculously tanky for reasons we'll actually get into later. There's some very good reasons why Reinhardt, his effective hit points in that form are much higher than you would expect, way higher than you would expect, and that's just due to some interactions going on with armor and nano boost. But again, we'll get into that later. I get distracted very easily. What you get is this early attack that the enemy has no good answer for. The only good answer they have is if they're running an Ana themselves. Now, this isn't unusual to happen, where you have nano boost, where you have one hero basically being that hero's counter. The same exists for Lucio. Kind of exists for Ana as well, where the best way of stopping a nano boost is sleep dart. Hitting sleep dart onto a nano boosted target when there's a Zarya on the enemy team, a little bit tricky. Very tricky, actually. Much harder than just speed boosting when they're speed boosting, for example. So this Reinhardt gets in, he gets ultimate charge super fast, he deals tons and tons of damage, the enemy team scrambles back, and you usually win the fight. Because your ultimate came up before theirs did, therefore you're gonna be, you're gonna just get a lot of earlier damage coming out, and you're gonna win. And then you snowball, and you just keep that train rolling. And an ultimate charge is fast enough where you never really stop getting them, especially in a lineup like this where the tanks are so big and meaty and easy to heal that they're just gonna constantly be topped off again and constantly picked back up by this Ana healing that's absolutely enormous. as such, you're going to keep hold of that momentum. And even if you do lose a fight, you're still going to have so many ultimates, like in Reunited's case here. So if I just wiggle my mouse around super quickly, I'll actually move it slowly so it doesn't look too shitty on the VOD. But this is a recording of a recording of a recording, so expect a little bit of quality drop, especially in the fights, just due to how bitrate works. But yeah, like, they have everything. Reunited are so good to go for this next fight. They're really, really ramped up and ready to go. They have sound barrier as a defense, but yeah. And even though, like, this is a great Graviton Surge and a great heal grenade went into it as well, so Ana landed the nade right in the middle of that, so no healing's coming out, everyone's going to die. Reunited can just take that, kind of. It kind of sucks because they already had advantage in ultimate terms, but at least they got rid of Mafu's ultimate, so they didn't spend anything. All they lost there was time. So that's okay-ish for Reunited, who already have like a good amount of time in the bank. But yeah, let's talk about like let's talk about why this became the norm before we actually go further. So what happened, because NIP, Ninjas in Pajamas, if you aren't initiated, Ninjas in Pajamas have been running this comp for absolutely ages. They've been running this Ana comp basically since Ana became a part of the game. They've been trying to make Ana work, and they found the strategy of the 303. And the reason why it came into the game is simple. It's because the Zenyatta nerf came in. And Zenyatta was basically keeping tanks pushed back. Zenyatta was just keeping tanks, like, controlled. Because when Zenyatta is around, then tanks are suddenly very, very vulnerable. And so you can't take this measured and control poke damage so much. You've got to just be so much more careful. And also, he made it so that you could basically brute force down the nano-boosted target somewhat. Like, it just removed the damage mitigation, so you could brute force the Reinhardt, for example, charging into you a little bit easier. Now with that gone, or at least reduced, the comp is a lot more viable and a lot stronger. It was a comp that was already kind of working, now it's a comp that just flat out works. And a lot of teams can't handle it. They can't find a way to beat it using a normal 2-2-2 comp, 2 tanks, 2 DPS, 2 support comps. They can't do that so well. I need to move this camera somewhere probably where I can stare at it and the screen so it doesn't look like I'm ignoring you guys constantly as I look over at the screen. But problems for another time. We'll solve that later. Now, let's talk about why Reinhardt is an unstoppable, unshakable god as well with the NIP comp. Like, this is honestly, to me, one massive balance issue with this. So the way that armor works, if you aren't aware, armor will reduce the damage from a single shot by 5, or I believe it halves it if it's below a certain threshold. So anything with sort of pellety damage, like Tracer for example, Reaper, Roadhog, each of those pellets is considered individually. It's reduced dramatically. It reduces the amount of damage you take dramatically. Armor is really hard to break through for Tracer, for Reaper, and for Roadhog. They can generally just overpower it eventually, but it does take a little bit of effort. Also, by the way, if you're wondering, like, on the preview screen, I don't know if this is actually going to come through on the live thing, but the webcam is slightly transparent, and I noticed that as well, so I don't know, technical issues. I'm just running Shadowplay and seeing how this works, by the way, so if it doesn't work at all, who knows? Hopefully it will. But the way that Ana ult and armor interacts, okay? The Ana ult works first, so damage reduced by 50% first, and then the armor reduction is applied. This is basically the way that it's advantageous to the defender. So if it was the other way around, where armor is applied first and then you get the 50%, that's more advantageous to the attackers. If Blizzard can ring it so that that happens, that would be a lot better, because then Reinhardt doesn't get this sudden insane effective hit points where Roadhog just can't damage a nano boosted Reinhardt. Tracer cannot damage a nano boosted Reinhardt. Reaper cannot damage a nano boosted Reinhardt. And these, like, Roadhog and Reaper are like your tank busters. If they can't break a tank, you got a problem. You got a real massive problem. Like, D.Va won't be able to do anything. You won't be able to do any damage to this guy if it isn't like a big single shot. But if you're running a big single shot, well, the 50% damage reduction is going to make it such a problem anyway, and you don't want to run like Widowmaker or something into this. You don't want to run Pharah into this, who has no killing power, because all you're doing is splash damage to the enemy team that wants you to poke them. And we're entering a situation again where way back during the beta, I think this was removed during the beta. Yeah, it has to have been during the beta. Way back. There was a thing where, I think it was literally just during the first half of the beta, when you took damage, you used to gain ultimate charge. And they took that out because they felt that it was unfair, where you had situations where it's like, don't shoot that guy. You shouldn't be shooting that guy. It's a trap to shoot that guy, as I hit the microphone while I gesticulate. So, sorry about that. But you had situations where it's like, yeah, don't hit the Roadhog. Don't shoot that Roadhog. You don't want to shoot him, because if you shoot him, he's gonna get ultimate charge. So you want to make sure that when you're shooting him, you're not just shooting him so he can run off and heal again and get that for free. You've got to be shooting him when you know you can kill him. The exact same situation is happening now with the Anacomp. Exact same situation, where teams are now afraid to poke, they're afraid to shoot the enemy, they're afraid to deal damage. And you've got the situation where teams can't fight anymore until the fight is actually joined, or until they can confirm kills. But against a team lineup like this, you can't just confirm kills. But I hear you say, you scallywag, you scamp, interrupting me in my thoughts. Why not just jump the supports? Why not just run a King of the Hill style comp? You know, why not just run Winston, Zarya, Genji, Tracer, Zenyatta, and Lucio, and just plow into their backline? Well, dear viewer, people have tried that. People have tried that a lot. I watched Luminosity Gaming play against Ninjas in Pajamas try exactly that and fail horrifically and spectacularly. Now, some of that I think was on Luminosity Gaming. Their initiations weren't very clean, they weren't very tight, so the Winston would jump in a bit earlier before the rest of the damage could get in properly. There was just a lot of sort of disorganization on those approaches. But you've got to remember that the three tanks you're jumping into, which are usually Reinhardt, Zarya, and Winston. Reinhardt, Zarya, Roadhog, sorry, not Winston. These three tanks... Let's do it... oh, whatever. Yeah, so it's easier with this 10. These three tanks, they want you to jump into them, as my camera spazzes out a little bit. They want you to jump into them. Like Roadhog's damage at long range, non-existent. Reinhardt's damage at long range, non-existent. Zarya's damage at long range, not great. You jump into them, they're laughing, they're having a whale of a time. They couldn't be happier. They want you in them. Take that as you will. And yeah, so you're sort of launching into these fights where the Nana just has to run away and just stay alive long enough for the tanks to just clean up. And when it's like a Winston, whose only defense is a Zarya barrier, jumping into Reinhardt, Roadhog, Zarya, no, it's not going to last. When it's Reaper trying to get in there, not going to last. Like, it's going to be forced into Wraith form instantly, and not going to deal enough damage either to kill anything. And because you're not killing things, they're getting nano boost faster. So the problem is you can't confirm the kills on these tanks fast enough at the moment without the Zenyatta 50%. But the Zenyatta 50% felt horrifically unfair, was horrifically overpowered when put on defensive heroes. So we again have this issue where it feels like, you know, there needs to be sort of one rule for tanks and one rule for DPS. And in a joke, and like Mitch Uber de Leslie, brilliant caster, beautiful guy, absolutely amazing caster, probably... actually, yeah, I might say he's my favourite caster for Overwatch at the moment, just because he has so many beautiful Australianisms that he throws into his cast, and I like those. Anyway, he said, yeah, it's time for Blade of the Rune King, right, as a joke. And if you aren't familiar with League of Legends, Blade of the Rune King was basically an item that introduced percentage damage into the game, and sort of, in my mind, it signified the major shift in Riot's sort of way of balancing, where they just started putting percentage-based damage on everything, and it was horrible. And it to me, is awful. I don't like that. I think it just takes out a lot of the... It oversimplifies the game, and it just... it doesn't feel nice. When you're trying to be equally effective against all these targets, it just feels like the game's badly balanced in that case. It feels like hit points are kind of meaningless. Anyway, it feels like, you know, maybe Discord maybe needs to be more effective on tanks and less effective on DPS or something, or maybe you need something that works like that just to help make this work. I've heard also other counter ideas, by the way, rather than, like, personally, I've never been a fan of going right to the balancing board, and we will talk about balance as well, and Ana and specifically, like, what I would change to Ana to make it easier to balance her. But I've always preferred looking for in-game solutions. To me, like, the developers go and handle that shit, and if the developers want my input, then fine, like, I'm happy to give it. But to me, like, when a match starts, I can't go into the variables and change things like Ana's ultimate charge rate. I can't change that. All I can change is my team comp and what I have available. One discussion I saw raised the idea of using Mei as a method of beating the Ana comp. I'm iffy on that. The problem with using Mei is, I agree with the idea, like, to me, you've got to, like, my brain works like this, okay? The Ana boost is going to come faster than you are ready for it. That's the big problem. The Ana boost is coming before you are ready. You will not be able to outrace it. You just can't do it. You've just got to assume in most instances they will have it before you because they are the offensive team, so they have more control over when they're pushing, when they're not pushing, when they're taking damage. They have more positional control over that kind of thing, while you have to stay put and defend an area. As such, you can expect the Ana boost to come first. You do not want to fight that Ana boost. Like, you cannot kill it. Okay? You cannot kill the nano boosted Reinhardt. You just can't do it efficiently. It doesn't work. So to me, the answer then is to try and waste and burn down as much time as possible. And it's a little bit like dealing with a dragon-bladed Genji, where you are trying to find ways to disengage and to avoid fighting. To me, like, Lucio's speed boost and running the fuck away is one of the best ways of dealing with it, but of course in that process you're going to lose control of the point, or they're going to gain a lot of ground. They also have their own Lucio speed boost, and they have their nano boost on as well, which gives them a massive speed boost anyway, so they will catch up. But to me, the idea is you are buying time. You're trying to burn seconds away where their Reinhardt cannot hit more than one person, if he can even hit one person. That's where the Mei becomes useful, where you can put the wall up and you can just try and block the nano boosted person from getting any efficient damage done. That will help stop the snowball effect, where they've dealt so much damage that they then have their Earth Shadow ready before you're ready, and before you have any counters to it, they're already in an offensive position, and they can drop that Earth Shadow and take everyone down. You try and disengage so hard. The problem with trying to use Mei to freeze targets is that the enemy team is going to have a Zarya. And unless you are hitting the dream wall, where you're literally walling off their Reinhardt and their Reinhardt only, even that, I think, is not going to be enough to stop the Reinhardt closing in on you and dealing enough damage to where he will just kill 2 people, 3 people. The Mei cannot stand close enough to where she can survive long enough to freeze the Reinhardt before Zarya can get to him and put a barrier on him, or Ana can get back and put heal darts onto him. The argument is also raised that, you know, if you can wall between the Ana and the Reinhardt, he loses a lot of healing, he loses a lot of defensive power as well, so he will be sort of isolated and alone, and maybe you can blow him up in that time. I'm unconvinced that you will be able to do that reliably, and that there won't be ways around it, and that the Reinhardt won't survive long enough, basically. I also have issue with the idea of running Mei against 3 tanks. Like, the Mei will just not deal enough damage meaningfully to be able to deal with the 3 tanks, so you're just in danger of getting run over regardless. Like, the Zarya could just come in and clean up, and they could just use nano boosts as they want. Because you're losing so much damage, it becomes difficult. So that's the issue I have with Mei as this match ends. I'm just going to jump forward. I think it's actually a while until the next match starts, so let's just jump all the way forward. There's Hexagrams, beautiful Hexagrams. He solo casted this. I wasn't around when he started. If I wasn't, I knew that he was going to solo cast. I would have said, hey buddy, I can help. But yeah, like, hats off to him. Is this playing? I can't tell. Is it play? There you go. So yeah, Numbani, but I'm going to just keep talking about this Anacomp. So I think using the Mei as like a purely disengage tool, like, you see that they're coming with the nano boost, you speed boost wall, do everything in your power to just stall it so that the nano boost gets as little value as possible. It doesn't matter if you lose a third of the point in that process, if you can come back and fight and win when they don't have the nano boost anymore, and they didn't get an ultimate or a free Earth Shadow off the back of it. Like, that is to me how you try and deal with this. You don't take the fight. Like, to go with Sun Tzu and you guys, if the enemy's at a position of strength and a position of power, the answer isn't to try and fight them, it's to disengage, it's to run. You don't want to engage them when they're stronger than you are. That's at least how I see it. That's how I try and solve it. I don't know if teams have tried this. They probably have. Like, the assumption I always make is that teams have practiced this stuff in scrims. Sometimes teams don't. Sometimes teams, like, they don't do this sort of stuff. Another counter, actually, by the way, that I've heard proposed and that I gave thought to is that Bastion, like, if they're running a tank-heavy lineup and just trying to run into you, Bastion is honestly a good answer to stop that. The problem with Bastion is that he's Bastion, so they'll just swap their lineup. Like, they can just swap one of the supports, so they can run 4-1-2 and just swap to a Genji, and then Bastion's done. Like, Bastion's weakness is that he is so predictable, so bland, so dependent on other defenders that they just have to not be idiots, and they should be able to get past him. And they should be able to just outplay him. So there's an issue there. Right now, the answer that people are going for is they're just going to play Nip Comp and play it better. And so I think when Atlanta rolls around and when E-League starts, that's probably what we're going to see. We're going to see a lot of this comp. You're going to see a lot of 3-0-3, you're going to see a lot of 4-0-2, and you're going to see some 3-1-2 comps all built around Ana. So welcome to the Ana meta, guys, and I think we'll just play for this half of the match and just watch what happens there. I'm trying to think of what else have I missed when talking about this. The Hanzo pick fascinates me. Absolutely fascinates me. They've been running this a while where they run this 3-1-2, but they use Hanzo in the middle of it, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why they're now swapping to Zappis on the Zenyatta. That's a much better choice, especially when you're going against 4 tanks. Like, if you're running into 4 tanks, Hanzo is not going to do shit. He's not going to be able to hit Mort, because Mort's standing usually in intelligent positions. Mort's very good at that. And he's not going to hit Cruz, because Cruz is also going to be in intelligent positions. And Cruz is Lucio as well. Like, it's very difficult to hit a Lucio who's being evasive, and Cruz is very good at being evasive as well. So, not going to get much value out of that. And in general, in these matches, like in the background, if you've been watching them, you will see that Mort has generally actually been beating Kindle to getting the first Ana boost, and that's absolutely huge. That's absolutely huge. Even on defense, he's doing better. So yeah, like, well done, Reunited. Well played by Reunited. That's one thing I forgot to talk about. So how would I fix this if I was a Blizzard developer? Now, the temptation, the thing that like instantly occurs to people is, okay, well, the problem is that Ana boost charges too fast. Let's remove the Ana boost charge rate. Like, let's slow that down. Let's bring it in line with everything else. The problem with that is that then Ana just vanishes from the meta. Zenyatta does more healing, does more damage over the period of an entire game than Ana does. So unless Ana has this advantage with her ultimate, I don't think you see Ana anymore. To me, one of the better answers is to actually reduce the amount of time, the duration of the Ana ultimate. So it's very, very similar to what they did with Genji. The way that Genji's Dragon Blade used to last like 8 seconds, that lasts 6. It just reduces that amount of time you have to get all that value. Another potential solution that probably feels very icky, and I imagine they won't ever implement, but it's just sort of food for thought, is if you make it so that you gain either reduced ultimate charge or no ultimate charge when you are nano boosted. That means that you do not get that massive snowball advantage. You still deal an absolute shitload of damage. You still like get a Reinhardt in their backline dealing tons and tons of hurt, or you get a Genji in their backline who can just kill things without its ultimate. But you do not gain a huge snowball advantage where one ultimate is just feeding into another one immediately in such a dramatic fashion. And either reduce the amount of ultimate charge rate when you are nano boosted, or you just make it so that you so you don't gain any. I imagine Blizzard won't do that because it probably feels very disorienting. If you get none, reduction probably could be on the table. Like, I'd say consider it. I'd say take a look at it, because it could be a good way of just reining some of that in. You still get that initial engage power, but you don't get the follow-up. You don't get the snowball quite as much. I still think that they are going to probably reduce the charge rate. How much? Not sure. Not sure whether they're going to change Ana's power in other regards as well. I think if you're going to look at Ana's power and you're going to look for a place to buff it, then you've got to look at the heal grenade. Like, I think that's the place you go to change Ana's power, because you can't up her healing any more than it already is. It's already insanely high, and yet you can't, like, if you remove some of the ultimate's power, then she'd have no reason to be picked. I think if you have the healing grenade and the anti-heal grenade be a little bit more effective and more efficient, easier to land, I think you're going to get a good advantage there. And, oh, Jesus, Winghaven, just beautiful positioning by him there. Love it. Winghaven's really come along as a tank. I'm going to have a quick slurp of coffee because I've been talking straight for like 24 minutes at the pace that I talk at, which is pretty damn fast. Yeah, like, hats off to Reunited as well. Like, Reunited, I know Cruz was saying that they come up with a strategy to beat Ninjas in Pajamas, to beat this strategy. Whether this is it, like just running 4 tanks and 2 supports, not sure. The question I also have about the 4 tank 2 support lineup, by the way, is can you run enough DPS to overwhelm it? Like, could we be entering like a rock paper scissors style meta, for example? I'd be interested to see how 4-0-2 stacks up against 2-2-2, where you run like McCree and a Reaper. Like, could that work? Or you try and just dive the 4-0-2, but I still don't like the idea of diving into 4 tanks. I just think that feeds the tanks a little bit too much. I think that gives them too much of an advantage and makes, like, you're fighting into a game where they are strong, and you don't want to do that. Now, you might be wondering, like, because you want to keep distance from the tanks, why don't you run Pharah? Why don't you run Widowmaker? Well, it's because you lack killing power on those heroes. Like, the Widowmaker isn't going to get the picks because she has to shoot the enemy. Ana. Like, that's the only target that she's really going to be hitting. because Lucio's never really going to be in a position, and Lucio's evasive as hell anyway. Like, Lucio's got the squirreliest hitbox in the world, so you're not going to be hitting him so much. You don't want to shoot the tanks, because even if you land a full charge headshot, you're not killing the tank. The tank could just... Reinhardt just puts his barrier back up and gets healed to full. Ana has her ultimate that much faster. And so the problem is you've got this piece that's not really going to be doing much. You'd rather run something that can deal more reliable damage or just contribute in more meaningful ways. So Widowmaker's not the answer. Pharah is not the answer for a number of reasons. First of all, she's dealing splash damage, which you don't want to be doing anyway against this kind of comp, because that's just feeding ultimates. It's the same problem that you have with Junkrat, where sure, you're dealing a lot of damage, but you're not killing anything. And if you're not killing anything against this comp, you're losing. Like, it's that simple. So Pharah is not the solution. Also, when you're running Pharah, if they run triple support, going against Zenyatta and Ana, the Ana can just fire 2 shots and kill you. Like, it's too dangerous to run, basically. So the Pharah is not going to work. So how you beat this without running it yourself is difficult. I do think there is some credence to using like a stall tactic, a disengage tactic, where you just try and run from the nano boost. But that, again, only really works against the first one. When the first one is done, then the second one could have other ultimates in association with it. So it could have a Graviton Surge holding you down. It could have sound barriers, for example, coming in as well, just making targets that much more dangerous. It could have a number of other things just influencing it. So difficult, very, very difficult. And I think that this is going to only really go away with balance changes, specifically to Ana. That's the only way I see it happening. But anyway, thanks for watching to the end, guys, as Reunited valiantly trying to hold this last moment. Reunited, by the way, did go on to win the series 3-0. Like, that's not a big spoiler, I think. If you're watching how these two teams are playing, Reunited definitely look a lot more in control, a lot more well-suited, just playing better, basically. Yeah, this is a changing format as well. My face is on the screen now. Let me know what you guys think as well. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it or not. Hopefully you guys did. But this has been an explanation of the Ana comp, what it is, how it got introduced, how potentially you beat it, balance changes, variants, everything you probably wanted to know about the Ana comp. Doodles.